largely kind of going for the same kind of an idea once again. You've got a very sort of skirmish-heavy team. McGinnis coming through, always going to be an interesting little chess piece, I suppose. But the way that DMS looked in their last game, I'm not going to question it. I think they're going to be fine. They looked super solid, apart from that one little mishap. But other than that, it really did feel like Buff Enjoyers were on top for the majority.
I think there's going to be an interesting difference between the Play With Me Haze and the Play With Me Wraith, which is that Wraith just felt like at no given point she was dealing enough damage, even when she had the farm to do so, unless positioning was perfect. And I don't think Haze runs into the same sort of issues, but maybe it is something more for her to be doing over here. 36 HP left on Mikhails, will be able to keep himself alive, waiting for the heal creep to make its way over, and as will be trying to do so, will be forced into the healing right first item.
Alright, well, odds are up there, if you want. Over to leon.bet/esports and get involved in all of that fun.
We live in interesting times, don't we?
But I would say DMS, I mean, it's a long uphill battle, isn't it? So the odds may be fairly representative of things at this point in time. That, though, is a nice Ivy bomb. Kudzu bomb, not quite going to do enough damage, but Obik is donezo. The McGinnis, not exactly the most mobile of characters early on in the game. So, nice chase. And once again, Buff Enjoyers, they do give up a little bit of a lead early there.
I am curious to see how Holistic will be doing over here on the Granny as well. It's going to be something where... Look, for me personally, I actually think the Trap plus Wall combination is pretty good in lane, but both of these heroes just don't feel like they have the most mobility, so you are going to be pretty susceptible to death very quickly. Meanwhile, obviously, Demo versus Wolfie, a matchup that we haven't really talked about before. It was the Yamato going up against the Pocket. Now, a little bit different. Wolfie on a much harder carry in the Infernus if he'd like to opt into something like it, and it is going to be Demo on the Shiv.
Don said he wins the race as far as Buff Enjoyers are concerned at the moment. Looking to get themselves back into this lane. In with the McGinnis. Ooh. Going to be tough to push back out.
That feels like a visual bug. Well, hopefully the players don't see it and it is only us, but you know what? A direction for anyone who doesn't know where to go, I guess. Okay, so re-engagement from the Viscous and the Ivy now being planned out. They really want to push the issue, and it is going to be another death coming out for Obik. He's been struggling on this McGinnis. It's a hero who we frankly haven't seen have almost any success so far in the tournament. So, curious to see how he wants to change that one around, but it is now Haze being chased down, the Sleep Dagger and Dart ready, but it's still a chase forward from Mikhails. He has to be careful. There's going to be backup nearby. It's a Vindicta to come in with the immediate lash out to keep them close. It's a trade 1-for-1, and Demo across the map makes it a 1-for-2.
I gotta say, Saf is looking pretty scary right now on this Viscous. Getting a lot of work done, up to 3.3k, highest in the game at the moment. And is really pressing that advantage, not just in his lane, but elsewhere as well. This might be the way back into this series for DMS.
Speaking of advantages, though, we might want to take a small word out for lane 4, where Zergy versus Psycho is completely one-sided. Zergy has not given a chance to Psycho to even breathe. Right now, he's sitting on 3.4 compared to Psycho's 2.3 on the Yamato. And that's fully 1v1. There's no rotations coming in, nothing like it. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is actually a very, very substantial lead. That almost starts to feel like an unplayable lane if you're that Yamato, especially now that obviously Zergy is available with the ulti and Psycho is still quite a ways off of that. Demov was also lost the 1v1 over in his lane. So while one side lane might be going well for Buff Enjoyers, and we see that as a good example, Zergy getting the kill, of course, on the Psycho. The other side maybe not quite going as well, and obviously these duo lanes offering a bit of resistance, quite frankly. DMS are getting a lot of work done in the middle of the map.
It is like the left side of the map is going swimmingly well, but is Vindicta fighting right now versus the Warden? What's going on that side? It's not like there's any buffs to be found at this point or the other. All right, another rotation back out over. It is Saf who's viscous. You have laid claim that is one to be feared, and Jordan, I think you're right about it. But now they're looking up for another attempt over to D-Mob. D-Mob's getting low. We'll be able to get away though.
Just giving Obik a bit of time to get back into the game. Prestus and Play With Me both go down. That is for sure going to be a Guardian dropping in lane number 3. And at this point, we're kind of really looking at Wolfie and we're looking at Saf to be the ones to kind of drive this game forward for their team. They do seem like the two that are, you know, obviously on the front foot at the moment. Elsewhere, the rest of the map really struggling now.
Wolfie can pressure on for a lot of damage onto this Walker if he wants to, because rotating away from Saf and Ivy is going to be incredibly difficult, especially when you consider that Hapex can always ulti and give backup to Wolfie as long as he's got that Fireblaze up to be able to create a bit more distance. So there is that to consider. Lane 4 is just as much of a travesty as before, by the way. Psycho is found some recovery farm at the very least, so maybe he can have a kill or anything like it with a recovery, but we'll have to wait and see. Oh, the point. Could be a little bit of trouble out for this great talent, but no, nothing of the sort.
Well, once again, just having a look at the Vindicta. Never press this. Leaning in towards the ultimate with the priority, of course.
No surprise
there. 3-0 and 2.
Yeah.
And like I said, will be the real focal point here for DMS. I think for Wolfie on that Infernus, you know, you do, I think, have a degree of agency on the Infernus. Obviously, you can kind of start fights yourself. You can be quite self-sufficient, but a lot of this game is, I think, really going to be dictated by how Saf is playing on that Viscous at this point.
Zergy. I'm surprised Hayes hasn't actually tried to close the distance. Play With Me shies away from getting aggressive onto Zergy. And look, if you look out towards his items, he's got a lot of high defense items. So he obviously wants to try and just stay alive inside the lane wherever it is possible. Maintain control over that Guardian. Makes solo laning so much easier when you have that Guardian to play around.
Yeah, this is starting to get a little bit scary again for DMS, that they had the advantage in a couple of those lanes, haven't necessarily been able to press it too much. And as we kind of get into the mid game, that is where things really did start to open up once again for Buff and Joyce, but probably not quite at that stage just yet. Needing another sort of minute or two really before that starts to come into play. And I'm quite eager to see how things are going to shape up when we do get that first sort of proper bona fide team fight. I mean, I don't know, Buff and Joyce, they even really want that? Do they even really want a particularly prolonged skirmish? I think they're really more so kind of going to be looking for lane pressure, obviously, with that McGinnis, with the 7. Long-range poke coming out from the Warden as well.
Oh,
the Great Talon, I should say, not the Warden.
Nice attempt. Obik's going to be able to live, and even if he dies, it is not going to be to the extra soul-stealing Vindicta ultimate. Sharik, though, has found less fortune.
Where's Ivy off to at this point in time? It might be Mikhail in the firing line. He's going to try and get out of there. He is a lash, to be fair, so there's every possibility if anyone was going to get out, but not him, not this time. And even though you are the lash, you just don't have enough mobility to get away from Saf at this point in time. He's going kind of crazy.
Play With Me going down over there, though, at the very least, so 1-for-1, and the haze being restricted is going to be pretty big. Runes are going to go 1-for-1. I have no idea who got what. I do kind of wish that Valve would add that into the kill feed as well. That'd be kind of nice. But maybe one day.
Maybe one day. I mean, it's still early days. I think.
What? Casting Rune out for the Warden is going to be a little bit frustrating to play up against.
Oh, Mikhail going for the ulti here once again. They're looking for that shutdown onto Saf. He's gone into ball mode. It's surely not enough, but I might have lied. He's out. How did he get out? just by a sliver of HP. It will be not even enough to actually secure that Guardian for Buff Enjoyers. So really working hard to try and gain something somewhere around the map, but nothing really working out for them here.
Shuri being able to find that, of course, helped out somewhat by the costume, I'm sure. Earn delivery at a point like this is bold. That's why you've called Wolfie in as the backup. But it's still going to be 3 versus 3 on the fight. They're trying to take the initiation before the Haze actually gets there, put themselves in a winning position. Regardless, the Ivy is going to be taking a fight elsewhere. Gargoyle farm keeps Mikhail's away. Mikhail's stunned up, but the disarm right back to the Ivy. Mikhail's now looks to chase. Proceeds back on top of the middle fortress. And for now, that urn is not going to be dropped just yet.
Not yet, but it's definitely still circling.
Gales makes his way over. Gonna be problematic.
Gonna toss it in. And it looks like in the end, it is going to be DMS that will take the urn, but they do lose Wolfie in the meanwhile, and giving the Shiv, it's giving Dimov a lot of free space out there in lane 1. That's going to be answered by Play With Me. DMS continue to try to pressure in lane 2. Listic will fall.
It is important to keep the Listic Great Talent down as well if he gets that full cooldown suppression. That's what the build he wants to go for. Those repeated owls are incredibly frustrating to fight into, especially as heroes like, sort of Prestus, Psycho, Haze, who are good at coming in and out of fights, especially with the upgrade to the grapple from Yamato, where you can disengage from a fight by grappling a teammate at level 3, I believe it is. So I'm curious to see how that is going to be made a priority or not. Obviously, for Buff Enjoyers, one thing is for certain, Zergy will always be given farm priority.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even if he's given farm priority right now, he's struggling to keep up with the Infernos. Wolfie at 12k. Is quite a significant portion ahead of most of Buff Enjoyers at this point in the game. That is, look, I mean, it's only in some cases 2-3k, but that is quite a power budget for Wolfie at this stage.
Yeah. Got to be careful, as the Ivy might end up going down even if you've got backup nearby, but that backup's been increased. Vindicta now makes her way over as well. The Guardian Siege is planned out. All of the meanwhile, farm from Wolfie and Play With Me. Buff Enjoyers have the ability to try and punish an over-aggression, though, because of Obix. McGinnis, no matter how under-leveled and under-farmed she is, even just the wall is such a big mechanism to punish with.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true, but the angles become more and more difficult to find the further and further behind you are. One good thing, of course, about the wall is it does make taking the towers, sieging the lanes pretty easy. Exactly as you see just there. Ovic can drop it up behind the tower and ends up kind of being a free tower for Buff Enjoyers. They've done a much better job than DMS have in terms of taking down the lane pressure. And here's Zergy. We didn't really get too much of a view of last game. Trying to chase down Psycho. I just don't know that you're getting away from there, unfortunately, but it may have been an overstep here from Zergy, as he's going to be chased down in the end and finished off. So a 1-for-1, not too bad. But look, what is kind of concerning me here is DMS, they have an advantage, but I don't know if they're pressing it quite as much as Buff Enjoyers would have in that previous game. I mean, 68 to 66, you can kind of get the feeling that DMS are winning a lot of the fights. I think even if we press tab, we'll probably see that KD is substantially higher for DMS than it is for Buff Enjoyers, but they've only taken down one Guardian.
Jordan, but at the same time, you also look at what's happening when they try to press that advantage. They tried to dive Zergy just now. The Haze spent 45 seconds setting up for that. That's a lot of time in a 14-minute game so far. And then she died, and guess what? Yamato faring no different. It ends up being a 2-for-2 sure, but that's without the extra time being put into it from Play With Me, who will just continue to stay behind. And now the more that this goes on, you can see he's literally the lowest net worth hero on your team. You're a Haze main, Jordan. That doesn't feel good, but maybe this feels great for Mikhail, who's trying to engage. Now Recession will be guaranteed, but not with too much HP. The execution's missing their mark.
Yeah, Press is not able to land that finishing blow onto Mikhail. He'll get out okay, heading back to base for a quick little top-up. Most of the action happening around lane 3 at the moment, but D-Mob quietly getting a bit of the job done, you know, in that side lane as the Shiv. He's starting to become a bit of a presence, but my eyes are still kind of trained on Wolfie, who's now up to 17k. The guy has not really joined any of these engagements just yet. He's kind of been in those side lanes, farming up, becoming a bit of a ticking time bomb alongside the likes of Zergy, who is still eclipsing at this point in time. One rune will go the way of DMS. Didn't quite catch where the other one went.
Let's take up water.
Psycho trying to re-engage into the last stand is never fun. There's 3 players to suck life out from, but even so, Sharik will have to back off, and he cannot retreat. The execution enough to shut him down. Guardian goes down with it, but here comes Zergy looking to re-engage. Psycho taken down. Press is not feeling good either. It's going to be now Wolfie's time to shine, as he will be revealing himself to the rest of the world, but knocked off by the wall. He's been disabled. Back into the fray he goes. Flame dash away. The stun on him will be knocked down, and it's going to be tough times for Wolfie, as he thought this would be his grand entrance, but instead the curtains are calling.
Yeah, great stuff coming through from Buff Enjoyers as well. I do have to mention that Listic was able to get a kill with the bird in that as well in that engagement before Wolfie arrived. But as soon as Wolfie arrived, right, we did sort of say, like, okay, well, he's going to really be a priority right here. 19k souls. Jumps into the fight, instantly gets hit with the wall. Can't really have an impact. Then, as soon as he gets past the wall, it's straight into a 7 stun. And he just has to book it out of there. So actually, a really good job from Buff Enjoys to negate a lot of that potential impact. In fact, I don't really think there was much of an impact from Wolfie in that fight. So when we're talking about someone, you know, who's sitting a significant portion of souls above the rest of the competition at the moment, the fact that he was neutralized as well as he was is a testament to Buff Enjoys.
It's also, this is what it felt like when you saw Play With Me in the previous game had so much farm on the raid. Sure, you have the farm, but I don't see it. Right, you're split pushing, that's great. You're putting pressure on the rest of the map, that's great. But when it gets to fight, you're just never in position to deal damage, or you're never in time to deal damage. And that's us all credit, like you said, to Buff Enjoyers and how impeccable they are at these sort of re-engages when you're down, making sure that you never really know how many of them there are. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I think they're doing a lot with a little, if that makes sense. It feels like they've been kind of on the back foot for a majority of this game, but they're really kind of hanging in there. 91 to 92k goals. To be fair, though, DMS were in a similar position at a similar point last game, and then they lost one critical fight, and the game kind of snowballed away from them from that one fight, which could still very much happen here for Buff Enjoys as well. It could be this very fight. Soul Urn starting to come in. They're in lane number 1. It's currently in the hands of Obik on McGuinness. But DMS, much better setup for the Urn drop-off at the moment.
Wolfie is really hoping to be able to get in and do more this time over. Listic ultimate goes out and dodged down by the Psycho Yamato ulti. Haze in as he goes. Bullet dance ready. 2 players right order. The damage not there. The wall will block. No one will fall. The Haze cannot find any targets.
Yeah, that was such an insane wall from Obik. No one was going to be able to chase him down there. So good job to survive. However, Urn has now been picked up by DMS. And while they maybe didn't win the battle, I guess they win the war in this sense, in that they do get the advantage. Still to Wolfie, though.
I think they just lost the war.
Yeah, they lose 2 players for the Urn drop-off. I think it's still not too bad, especially considering there is pressure actually happening elsewhere on the map, though. With this Warden, Sharik. Did he take the Warden there? I think he just did. Yeah, he did. He got... I don't know why I keep calling them Wardens. Walker. Did he take the Walker? Yes, he did. That was what I was trying to answer. So for his death, that's probably worth it.
Damn, this war be kind of long, Jordan. Still, man, Wolfie, I am really unfortunately just seeing him continually zoned out. And maybe when Play With Me gets a bit more farm, that's going to be more of a sort of collectivizing presence where you're trying to stay away from the haze. You're trying to make sure that she can't just sort of snipe you out in any way. But that's something to be seen.
Well, it is definitely difficult sometimes when you are that Infernus and you are like the one sole damage presence on your team at this stage of the game. He is someone that can be shut down pretty quickly with some decent CC. You know, he's obviously got the flame dash, but once you've used that, you're fairly immobile actually. There's going to be a commitment here from Saf, or at least an attempt at it. Got the bird flying around there, ballistic as well. This is an absolute mess. All I can see is a giant goo ball on my screen. It's okay though. We'll jump back over to it. Dimov looking worse for wear on that ship. Will eventually fall. And Buff and Joyers lose one. They're being pushed back, but you've got to have a look at lane 1 and lane 4. This is actually a 4v6 right now that Buff and Joyers are kind of just using to waste a bit of time. Their main priority right here is actually taking down walkers in those side lanes.
Walker number 1 hits the deck. Walker number 2, not long for this world. Meanwhile, DMS hoping to get an objective in exchange, but will that be possible? You've already lost out a man. Psycho hits the deck. It's still with the Lash ultimate ready and waiting. The stone form down, and it is now Lash ulti used. It's stolen away. Revenge for what was once theirs, and this fight is certainly lost. Zergi's ultimate now goes up. Play With Me's health is all but lost, and Hapex in the middle of it all will realize this is not a pit, it's a graveyard for DMS.
Yep, and don't even worry about that entire fight. Obviously, it's massive that Buff and Joyers get the steal, but the Warden, Sharik, is in the side lane still. He takes down the Walker, he takes down the base Guardians, he takes down the Shrine. Buff and Joyers are having their cake and eating it at this point, and those odds are starting to shift even further in the favor of Buff and Joyers. They get their revenge for the last game, where they obviously had a mid-boss stolen from them, and they're able to do much the same back to DMS, and I don't know that you can come back from this one, DMS. I mean, that is a huge swing, obviously, for Buff and Joyers, and we sort of had some points on the map that were favorable for DMS 5 minutes ago, one of them being Wolfie. Obviously, Saf had a great early game as well. They have not been able to snowball those kinds of leads into anything substantial. And now look at the soul count. Zergi's at 30k. He has well and truly overtaken Wolfie. And players like Dimov, Mikhail have caught up. So, Buff and Joyers, it's looking pretty swell at this point.
Yep, they're getting ready to count that cash, that $5,000 first place. Yeah. Getting geared up for it.
Well, someone's looking to make a statement.
Yeah, I mean, you can look to end the game here, potentially.
I mean, you've already taken down, one set of the base Guardians. You already have a pathway in also for some of your more sneaky players. If you want to have Dimov try and work around it and make sure he's got always that threat of a flank being set up.
Moving into position.
It is scary.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty interesting composition for Buff and Joyers. You can really see where they're getting the value out of it. It's a difficult four-man to kind of punish, right? The Shiv has a lot of escapability. The McGinnis, obviously, with the wall. The Lash as well, quite mobile. And then you have the Great Talon that can sort of just sit back and chill and use the bird to have impact. Meanwhile, obviously, Sharik and Zergi on the Warden and the 7 respectively are just in the side lanes, and they're two very sort of safe side laners. They're very self-sufficient characters and players, obviously, as well. And so Buff and Joyers have just kind of pulled DMS all over the map and kind of wasted their time while that side lane pressure came through and more or less won the game for Buff and Joyers. So at this point, Buff and Joyers obviously looking really, really good to sort of play to their win condition, and there isn't really an answer right now for DMS. Like, who can go into the side lane and actually reliably deal with Zergi? There really isn't anybody. I mean, Wolfie's like the best choice at this point in time, but even he's going to really struggle. He doesn't really have the lockdown that he needs to kill that 7, and the 7 is just going to scoot out of there.
I don't even think Wolfie's necessarily would be able to do much other than...
No, that's what I'm saying.
Other than if he has towers with him, because if he doesn't have towers, the 7's also going to be very, very fast with his fleet foot and everything. You don't even have the easiest time running away from him at the Infernus, which sounds weird because of how fast that hero is.
Yep. So, rough state of affairs right now for DMS. Best they can really hope for is that they'll find a pick here or there, maybe, and get a chance to sort of scale back into this game. But the way it's looking, Buff and Joy is on their way to victory. Have let that rejuve tick down and tick out. So things might slow down for the next 5 minutes or so.
I don't know, because as much as we say that, I think DMS need to take a fight. They can't be the ones waiting. It is going to be a movement rune coming out as well.
Walker is under attack.
Gotta get as many of these up as I can.
Maybe an earn delivery into a fight, anything like this, but all the meanwhile, it is lane number 2 where action is taking place. This could be a good one for DMS. They're trying to engage into a big numbers advantage for themselves, but they're still being forced away. Player with me has found nothing. He's been torn apart, tinkered with, being brought down, and as the kills is trying to chase in after them, gets a double whip as well. The ultimate's still ready and waiting. A blasted off Ivy. Nothing for Hapix to do, and pursuit will not stop just because there's an ethereal formed Infernus. Wolfie still trying to phase away. It's just not possible. You cannot escape.
He's trying his best. Gets that flame dash across, but you're right. He is really struggling to get out of there. Looks like he might just get away, but for all the good that's going to do, obviously Buff and Joy is able to slide on through with that soul earn courtesy of Obik, and now it's Saf on the Google having to respond and retreat to safety. Look at how big the stun is, man. Oh my god, Zergi's stunning the entire map at this point in time, and if you're not stunned, well, you're going to be eating some lightning as well. This is crazy. Buff and Joy is pushing their way forward. Zergi will fall, but man, it's feeling pretty done.
Yeah, Zergi's okay with that. He knows his team is going to be able to take away that patron. Maybe not the weakened patron, but at least the initial strengthened one. Oh my god! There was a Google there once upon a time, but I guess that's just, I don't know, power detergent or something like it. Shiv trying to dive into the fountain as well with that extra movement rune and mobility that he will be given, just keeping them at bay. He only has, what, 2 people to have to worry about? Yeah.
Well, at this point, just trying to do some janitorial duty and stop those creeps from pushing in on the patron, but that is really wishful thinking at the moment for DMS. I think we can all see which way this one is going. Buff and Joyers will take another victory, and that means tonight is done. That's a 2-0 for Buff and Joyers. They are the champions of the Leon Bet Masters Deadlock, and that is now how many in a row for them, T-Time? I think 3 or 4. DMS, unfortunately,